I was able to make $900 scalping NQ off the lower day VWAP, trading the minis. So fast action, big size, not a lot of movement though, and it doesn't look like my normal setups, but I did have a thesis behind it, so stick around to see why I did what I did, and maybe you could learn how to take these plays yourself. So looking at the trade Zella here, pretty solid month to start. Another green day, chipping away slowly but surely. For anyone that's wondering, all these trades are on my Tradeify accounts, where if you use code Dyer, you actually get 30% off all of these accounts. These are on the straight to sim funded ones, the one I'm trading. But you can do the growth, the advanced, whatever you want. I like just the straight to sim because it's right into the building the buffer to get those payouts. And with the 150K accounts, you get 6,000 worth of drawdown, 3,700 of max daily loss. So plenty of room to play with. But back to the trade Zella here. Those are the accounts I'm trading. Love them so far. Stacking about 900. I'm liking that size to start with for now. But looking over the trades, there it is. NQ, very small amount of movement that I actually longed it here. Was not a short play. But you're probably saying, well, why wouldn't you short it there on a lower day break? VWAP bounce off the New York, break the lower day VWAP. Sellers are back in. Why don't we take this lower? But stick with me now, because if we go over to ES, that's where my long bias was actually coming from. So if you look at the minis here, because that's where I have the markup on, that if you follow this channel, you know I use the initial balance as one of my favorite key levels. We normally only break one side. So if we break this upside here like we did, there's only a 15% chance we also break the downside of it as well to do a double break. Now to get those figures, I just go over to Edgeful and we look at the initial balance report. You can see on this day, the size of it was 0.12%, so a very small one. It was a dry New York open, low volatility. So based off the size of that initial balance, in the past 6 months, 15% of the time it breaks both sides, 3 out of the last 20. So not very likely, being that we took out the top, that it would also break out of the bottom. So I'm kind of turned off to the idea of potential shorts because it's telling me there's only a 15% chance it would move lower. Not very likely at all. So with NQ looking like it might want to move lower, right, inducing those shorts here on this lower day, I'm figuring, well, ES probably doesn't want to move lower statistically. So that's probably not going to help NQ move lower either. So if ES moves higher here, NQ is probably going to get dragged with it. This lower day is actually, unfortunately, probably going to induce a lot of amateur shorts that don't maybe know that stat. It is a good short, but with that stat, it becomes not a good short. That it's now I'm looking for longs off of this VWAP bounce. And the great thing about this, you could say, of why I got in and out so quickly, I had a tight stop. Because if it did, in fact, run even just a little bit further and continue this lower day VWAP breaking and sellers maintain that control, then get me out of the long. Because now it's not really holding. Sellers are actually in and holding in, so get me out. So I had great risk reward on it. That's why I was able to get out so quickly with the heavier size, because on NQ, 16 points is nothing. Normally I'd have like a 40, 50 point stop, so that's why I had the heavier size on, short amount of movement, lots of money. Now another thing you could say with the short here, you don't really have clean, beautiful lower highs consistent like maybe you did back here up until that point. Then once you get this up here, now it's not really looking like the most clean, beautiful lower highs today, that maybe this is going to be our higher low, especially when you look at ES. It looks like, yeah, that's probably going to want to be our higher low. So that's why I did take this short, or I didn't take the short, I took the long. Now, an argument could be made, well, if that was your thesis and that's around the same time that ES is bouncing off New York here, why not just long it on ES, which looks like the normal play you would take? And for that, I don't really have an argument. I probably should have, but I was just watching NQ, so I took it on NQ, but I definitely probably should have just taken it on ES because this one has the clearer structure. You can see it's bouncing off yesterday's New York and today's New York. Again, I know it probably doesn't want to move lower, so everything's lining up for longs. This even goes back to the point I make on our AceFX TV streams all the time of not chasing that first break out of open range high, right? Because it just normally doesn't run very far, and this one didn't run very far at all. That you let it pull back, see if buyers can defend it. They do. They create the higher low. I'm going to take the second break outside because that one's the more likely one to want to run further. Case in point right here. So that was a nice, clean, beautiful trade. Now, one argument or comment or question I did have on this of, Evan, were you concerned about the daily VWAP potentially in your way? So if you look on the left side here, the 15-minute, we were potentially running into this black VWAP here as resistance to want to move back lower, right? It's in our way potentially. And that's a valid question. Fair point. I never really want to try to trade against it. Ideally, we would be above it like we are later on in the afternoon. But in this game of uncertainty, that's all trading is. You're never going to find certainty in an uncertain market. That all we have is probabilities. So that's all I could do is try to weigh my probabilities, make my decisions based off the information that I have. So let's just make it up for easy numbers. Let's say I have 6 things telling me to long, right? That initial balance single break. We're bouncing above both of these key VWAPs. Some of the stocks are moving higher. Bigger picture, I'm bullish, higher time frame, right? But then the one thing telling me to potentially sell it is that daily VWAP in the way. All right, well, that's 6 things telling me to long it. one thing potentially telling me not to long it? Well, probabilities are that we still probably move higher because those 6 things are still so strong, telling me we want to move higher, right? So that one variable of that daily view up in the way isn't strong enough against those other 6 things telling me I should be long to keep me out of my long, right? Does that make sense? Because all we have is probability. It's not certain that this is going to move higher with that information I just said, but probabilities would say, yeah, there's enough gas in this to want to pop higher here because we probably don't want to move lower. Probability, right? We probably don't want to move lower here, 15%. So let me ride the 85% chance that we move higher from here off these key levels and you reap the rewards from it. So I think it was a great question because ideally, yeah, if you look at these later plays in the afternoon, these other new high a day, pull back, break of high day view up over here. Now you look on the left side, now you're above the daily view up. So those are probably even more high probability. So yeah, it's a great trade as well. So that's how I would read that on the 15-minute. Hopefully that all made sense. But now looking at this other play we were saying, this high day breaks, there's 2 opportunities on it and just one thing looking at the day. I mean, look at all the opportunities of the trending price action. So even if you miss this open higher highs and higher lows, there's still plenty of other long opportunities that hopefully you're able to capitalize on. But going back to this long, if you take this high day break, I think it's a great trade. Buyers are back in after our first healthy pullback, right? You know we're not longing it up here, just chasing price higher and higher. Let it pull back. This isn't quite off a key level, but it's a nice healthy pullback. Breaks a high day, saying buyers are back in. It runs a little bit. It teases you. But if you have a stop loss, that structure, it's not quite 1R, so you probably could even lose on that or maybe break even. Now, the one thing I don't particularly love about this is it's not really the best stop loss, right? Stop loss at this structure, it's above New York VWAP. I wouldn't necessarily want to be out if I got stopped out here because we'd still be above New York. So I don't love that. All right, well, let me see my other structure points to go with. Well, we don't really have any. So where do I put my stop? Not way down here at that structure. I don't need a 15-point stop. I don't need it right at the initial balance high. I mean, maybe, but there's no definite spot of, okay, I want my stop here. I wouldn't want it if we hit my stop here. But maybe after the second break above, okay, now we've seen it touch the New York. Don't let it touch the New York again. Now we've seen the full retest. This stop loss makes a little bit more sense. Again, it could be stopped out still, but it just makes more sense of, yeah, I'd want to be out because we're not really popping that high a day break. We'll keep coming back down to the New York VWAP, get me out of my long. So that's probably the one difference between these 2 high a day breaks, just the subtlety of, well, this one came a little bit deeper. And that pin there, if we bring up the 15-minute again, that pin there on this right side trade, this right here, is the pin to the daily view up on our 15-minute. So it's just a full retest, fully retesting our higher low to the daily and continuing the trend back higher. So maybe that's the one that worked because it fully retested our key level, which is what I'm always looking for, right? So clean opportunities today, all to the upside. Again, I could even just bring up the 15-minute of why I didn't even love the shorts to begin with, and especially with those initial balance stats. But even coming into the day, big picture, you're telling me we look bearish? Yes, there's some bearish movement and some bearish days, but with inside bar days, the overall buys I have in the market, any bearish sentiment we get like this, until we really move lower for a consecutive amount of time, it could just be building a higher low, which is exactly what happens, and it builds the higher high. I mean, you even go back to last week or 2 weeks ago as well, it's the same thing. The move you see overnight being bearish isn't, oh my God, we're going to sell off today. Just creating the higher low, back into trend, higher high. Same thing the week prior. Bearish move down, creating the higher low, bullish at the open. Move down pre-market, higher low, bullish on the open. So it's the same thing we had today. I'm not really bearish until we get some continuation, more selling, right? So with us stalling at this yesterday's New York, finally getting back above the daily, I think these longs over here are really, really good because now you're back above all VWAPs like we weren't on my open trade. So hopefully you guys made money today because I think there's some great lessons in it, some great trending price action. Yesterday was not great. If you haven't seen that, go check out that review. I also posted that here on YouTube. And if you haven't checked out Tradeify, seriously consider trading with them. You can get 30% off. So these numbers you see here would be cut by a significant amount, 30% off if you use code Dyer on all of these accounts. So definitely look into them. I love trading with them. The simplicity of just trading straight on TradingView is great. I mean, here's the markup. You can see the execution arrows of just getting right in on TradingView, right out. I can do my analysis, my markups, and my actual trades all on TradingView. The 20% consistency is great. All those good things. But a solid month. I'm proud to be stacking these green days, but one other lesson we could touch on, if you've seen the previous videos, 6 trades, 8 trades. I've been battling this past couple days, or a week, I guess you could say, of ending the day green, yes, but battling by taking some iffy setups that even though it won today, it can, again, I'm not really proud of it because it's not really my best setup and clean setup of what are you doing taking that, especially when you're not feeling super hot. You're having to battle for these wins and beat the market or whatever you want to say. That I probably should, on a day following the days I've had of getting beat up but battling back, revert back to what I know best, keeping it simple. And I should have just traded this, right? Rather than getting all crazy and long it on NQ that did not look super bullish. It's actually a low day VWAP break and you're long it, tight stop. That's probably not the time for my mental to be testing those ideas out, because if it lost, it probably could have quickly snowballed like I talked about in the previous video as well, right? So probably just not the safest or smartest thing to do with how I'm trading right now, even though it worked out, right? I could test those ideas out later when I'm on a hot streak feeling great, but right now probably just wasn't the smartest idea, but it's all right. So we live, we take the lesson, but hopefully you guys made money. Trade safe the rest of the week. Trade safe as always. Ever have any questions about Tradeify, Edgeful, always feel free to reach out. But other than that, trade safe. I'll see you guys on the charts tomorrow morning.